Hello and welcome to Forgotten Comics. This is Comicade, and I am hosting the series for the Comic Collectors Guild, which I am proud to be a member of. Thank you so much for having me. Today, we discuss the question. The question that I have about the question that, you know what, let's just do it.
This whole trip might just prove the kids shouldn't eat nachos before bed.
Peanut butter sandwiches.
How did you... What? Do you go through my trash?
Please. I go through everyone's trash.
What's happened with The Question? The Question's first appearance was in the Blue Beetle, issue 1, June 1967. Published first by Charlton Comics. Also, Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man, created both The Question and Blue Beetle. Impressive, no? The Question largely adapted Ditko's objectivist views at first. However, the only aspect that seems to remain intact of this throughout the character's existence is A is A.
What are you babbling about?
Everything that exists has a specific nature. Each entity exists as something in particular and has characteristics that are part of what it is. A is A.
The belief that certain things, truth, moral truth, exists independent from human knowledge. While this isn't the core of his comics, the philosophy and exploring that has been core to his characters since his Charlton days. The Question's real name is Vic Sage, debatably later changed by DC in the 80s. Originally in the 1960s Mysterious Suspense 1, we discover the origins of The Question. Vic Sage is an investigative TV reporter, met by his old professor, Aristotle Rodar, dubbed Tot by Vic, who, with Dr. Twain, developed Pseudoderm, a skin-like bandage, found toxic to open wounds. It actually poisons you if you have an open wound that you put it on. So, safe to say, Tot, Aristotle Rodar, didn't want that stuff getting out there, and his partner, Dr. Twain, he did. He wanted to cash in on it, because part of it was his. He takes Vic voluntarily and creates this skin bandage mask with adhesive bonding gas spray that would also alter Vic's clothes and hair color. Convenient. After this first successful investigation, Sage decides that this Question identity he became would come in handy for future investigations. The Question's longest run in a comic series was written by Dennis O'Neil, who wrote incredible descriptions in realistic character dialogue, illustrated primarily by Denys Cowan, that's art that I can only describe as always in motion. It just never stops moving. Even in a still frame, it feels like there's some sort of motion going on, some sort of movement. I'll show you in examples with key frames. This series was made and published by DC Comics in 1987. O'Neil gave the character a sense of humility after a severe defeat, and then training with Richard Dragon, he gained Eastern philosophy and mental discipline. O'Neil's Question is conflicted in how far to go when it comes to enforcing justice, but I'd say that he's not the typical crime fighter, because he operates on a level that must understand and learn the true nature of everything, perceiving things as black and white, while also learning of so-called good people doing evil deeds, and vice versa. There were reinventions of the character, most recently in the New 52 with Montoya. But I'm not really going there, I'm not talking about her. This is about Vic Sage. Or, the actual Question. So I said it, whatever. Then later on, there was a 4-issue miniseries called The Deaths of Vic Sage, which attempted to connect his counterparts together in a sort of unexplainable reincarnation story that I can't say is truly a good or bad version of the character, but I can provide an example of what I and many believe to be the best version of him. Or at least, what I would say is the best version of him. I can't speak for the whole world, but this is a really good example. As a major character in Justice League Unlimited, played by Jeffrey Combs in a firm, monotone, questioning voice. 4 appearances in 7 key episodes as one of the primary roles in the series entirely. In this version, there is major respect to both versions of Steve Ditko's original character. However, some small alterations were made to his character, which I prefer over all current comic book portrayals. The primary difference is the Question acts as a paranoid, observant obsessive, with little regard to either side of the law, meaning he sees evil for evil and investigates not for one side of justice, but instead seeks only truth. This is a trait that I believe was in earlier interpretations of the Question, but had never been amplified to this extent. With all this in mind, here's my pitch for a new take on the Question. Got my trusty notepad here. Let's do this. Vic Sage is an investigative journalist, young, 28, and a fighter. He's had a troubled past, left at an orphanage as an infant. His so-called teachers, who seemed trustworthy, always had their own agendas and cruel ways of discipline, which caused him to question right and wrong, to find answers in only truth. His greatest question was, who am I? One he could never answer. In a major cover-up story, he meets Tot, his old professor, who explains the nature of Pseudoderm, the skin bandage. He leaves it with Vic and all of his research, knowing Vic's ultimate desire is to exploit truth. Tot is no longer involved in the series as a main player, and Vic learns to disguise himself as the Question to uncover the truth in this story, and he does find evidence of the medical cover-up, as well as possibly much more. He discovers that his own station is involved in the tragic mess. To make matters worse, it involves the woman he loves, Myra. With everything he's ever known going up in smoke, he decides to create a cover-up of his own. He fakes his own death and leaves undeniable proof of the fraudulent activity with the body and an anonymous question mark. This begins the dawn of the person he now knows he is, the Question. That about wraps it up for today's episode of Forgotten Comics. I'm Comiccade, your host, and thank you for having me, Comic Collectors Guild. I love doing videos like this. I do videos like this on my channel all the time. I talk about comics, I review stuff, I unbox stuff. I try to keep everything kind of all ages, so if you're into that kind of stuff that I'm doing, head on over to Comiccade. That's my channel. And until the next one, keep it unreal.
Tell me what you know.
The plastic tips at the ends of shoelaces are called aglets. Their true purpose is sinister.